Chocho sampo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe tinle yarngoda pelge drolor zampe tse parche palden lame shabla solvade Oma Guru Vajradar Suma Timuni Shasane Kar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradara Suma Timuni Shasane Kar Uta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradara Sumati Munishasan Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradara Sumati Munishasan Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo a Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyukye Akudandagi Loya Pakyukye Sundangandagi Pakyukye Tudangandagi Yeteyerme Chikto Chingiolo Pakyukye Kudang Dhagilu Pakyukye Sundandaginga Pakyukye Tudang Dhagi Töyerme Chikto Chingilo Makyukye Kudang Dhagilu Makyukye Sundandaginga Makyukye Tudang Dhagi Töyerme Chikto Chingilo Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha shipu ki chushime to tamare raba linga shin ni de gempa di sangye shintu mikte ulwarki drokunam da shingla parasho yidam guru ratna mindrala kam niryata yami. Sangye chudan tsoge chonam la chanchu pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi chinso gibe sonam ki drola penchre sangye drupar sho sangye chudan tsoge chonam la chanchu pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi chinso gibe sonam ki Drola pinchra sangye drupar sho sangye chodan tsoge chonamla jancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchra sangye drupar sho. Nel Buddha, nel Dharma
In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Namo alhai ke dan ludan ne chin ke rubundan da mi ke nam dan ruwa kun ke dhanam chi tsampa tham che ke tu da ki chue ten to tham che ke tu da ki chue ten to. Buongiorno.
Good morning.
Anche se
Even if
il processo
the meditative process, the state of shamatha, of calm abiding, this state of meditative concentration is something wonderful, is a very powerful state. Alone, it's not enough. Because as we saw previously, to meditate means to familiarize, and when I'm able to develop a very important and powerful tool of meditation, it depends on what I familiarize with, because I can also develop a great deal of concentration and use it to, for instance, develop nuclear weapons. It's possible. or see what's the best way to become the most powerful amongst all, or similar. I go there, I put that unidirectional meditation. It's possible. As we said, anything can be an object of meditation. And it's also for this reason that the tool of meditation, the process of developing concentration, samadhi, so-called calm abiding, in our path is not the first thing that we do. It's not the first step of the path. Before comes the understanding of why we need to meditate. What do I need it for? So before there's the part of connecting with the reason, the why. What do we want? It means at the basis I need to have love towards myself and towards others. This is the first step. Then the meditative state of concentration can help me in the process of developing self-love and love towards others. Yes. But before, there's a first level, a first awareness, and then the more I have concentration, the more this can help me to meditate in equanimity, in love, compassion, etc., etc., and make it become more deep and powerful. But we need a basis. And this basis is what it's called the three principal aspects of the path. And here, this is something very important to us, to come back to and remind ourselves what is our motivation, why we are here. Okay, I go there and I meditate, but why? What do I want? And here there is a place where, first of all, we say, I want to be happy, and my suffering is something that happens inside of me and not outside. So, love towards myself. I allow myself to open towards the others. I want to be part of the solution and not of the problem. This is what I mean, because I cannot solve other people's problems or of the world, but I can be a positive interaction. But in order to do this, I need first of all to reach some kind of balance. If we look at our world, there were people that a small number of people, maybe even just one, was able to influence an enormous quantity of people and leave something that can stay for centuries. If we take, for instance, recently, if we think of Mahatma Gandhi, for example, but the power of these people, recently Mahatma Gandhi or Mother Teresa or Saint Francis or Jesus, Buddha, there are many others, even more recent and less known, but there are people that were able, in an incredible way, to transform the lives of thousands and thousands of people, and still are doing it centuries later. But their main power is not what they said, and it was not what they did, but it was what they were. A person that is love can say many things, it doesn't matter, but it transmits that love and is able to convince and help others and bless others. Mahatma Gandhi was so convinced that he was who he wanted to be. He incarnated his principles, and this is what brought this power of influence so huge. And these are examples of what we mean by the Bodhisattva path. I need to be what I want the others to become. Because words are we don't need them much. Imagine someone that is behaving in an aggressive way, coming towards us and saying to us, "Ah, no, you need to be lovely and kind." How would we react? Would we become more peaceful, or would we send him to hell, saying, "Ah, look how you are acting, and you're coming to me saying something"? But the same words that maybe someone else could say, that what is an incarnation of love, respect, etc., this power of these words of these people are completely different, and we would say, "Oh wow, yes, you're right." So if we want the world to be in one way or another, the only real way we have to influence it is myself becoming what we want the others to become. And this is, in a few words, what is the motivation of a bodhisattva. The so-called bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, that actually is this inner state where I want to develop myself in order to help others. And it starts from an altruistic state. And it's for this reason that I want to develop a good concentration. It's for this reason that I want to meditate and develop shamatha, calm abiding, vipassana, profound view, and unite them both in order to develop, to overcome my ignorance and develop my wisdom. And it's very important for us to renew and come back again and again to our motivation. One of the risks that we have in our path is that at a certain point we enter in automatic states. I am Buddhist since many years, so bodhicitta, yeah, I already heard it 1,000 times. But this is basis. But do you have it or you don't? No, so you need to repeat it. I already know it, but this we don't need. Not very useful, and the risk is that we enter in these automatic states where we say, in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment through generosity and the other perfections may I obtain the state of Buddhahood for all sentient beings, and then something doesn't actually move inside of us, and this is what we have to avoid. So, unfortunately, these rituals, these automatic states, after a while, is like it's like we become less sensible, numb. In Tibetan, it's called Che means Dharma, Chek means, I'm not quite sure, but I think we can translate it as when there's a lot of dirt and it creates like a crust of dirt that is very thick. That is, for example, when something is very dirty and it becomes all black on top and you have to really make it go out, is this crust that covers, called also trakpa in Tibetan. I'm not quite sure about the translation to have the certainty, but this works well in this case. So it's like when we have something that went there and kind of covered the practice. The example that we have of this from Papunka Rinpoche, as he describes, is when we put butter in a container of leather. That in Tibet it was very normal. Butter would, to keep butter, they would put it inside a leather container. So when we put it in a new container, in the beginning, when we put the butter, the leather starts absorbing it. And after a while, after we put the butter and you leave it there, there's a moment where once the leather has absorbed everything that it could of this fat, it becomes completely
Viene detto, dobbiamo stare attenti a non permettere che questo accada con noi.
It becomes like waterproof, so impermeable, and we need to be careful of this. And this example that is given from Papunka Rinpoche is Imagine you have in front of you an object of anger that you know well. We know this situation, this person, we know everything is not news. But if we start talking about that person, that behavior, that situation, and the more we talk about it, one is indifferent or anger starts moving and arise inside of us. Something moves. Or if we talk about an object of desire, that someone knows it really well, and we start saying, you remember how good it is, how wonderful it is, this and that. And the more we talk about the object of desire or object of sadness, what does it happen? The desire increases, sadness increases. It arises again. This is what we ideally should achieve innerly when we say, may all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. We should feel this sensation of the beings to be happy and be free from suffering and their causes. We need to feel it, trying to avoid making it stay just on a conceptual level, just words. The more we repeat it, the more it should increase this emotion inside of us, this sensation. But sometimes what happens is we enter in this automatic state, which is similar to those that we have when we use some violent words. There are some terminologies, some words that are being used in our daily life to express some frustration or whatever, but if you look at the meaning, a deeper meaning of that word, we would be like, I don't mean that thing. So it becomes automatic and one says it without even thinking of it. So sometimes this also happens with spiritual practice. We end up reciting things, doing, without actually being present in what we're doing. And this is one of the things we need to avoid. So for this reason, in the beginning, we need to reconnect with our motivation, sometimes also doing it with more calmness, using different words, having this attention, particular attention, of not entering in this automatic state where maybe this is a bit strong what I'm about to say, but this will help to understand. Sometimes it becomes more important being the practitioner rather than practicing. Being the Buddhist rather than following the path that the Buddha transmitted. I don't know if this is clear. Because at a certain point, once begins, it becomes normal, then you practice and you put this label, I am Buddhist, which is okay, but the label we don't really use, we don't really need. What is important is what we have inside, what happens inside. And at a certain point, there's this risk that someone is there and is practicing, because I'm a practitioner, I need to do the practice. I am Buddhist, I need to do this, because otherwise this identity I'm not able to sustain. And when one falls in this trap, what happens is that these activities stay on a superficial level, and it's difficult to work inside of us. They have difficulty working inside. It's similar to the fact that at a certain point, one believes that it's right to love others. It's better than the opposite, of course. And someone arrives there and say, no, I should have this attitude of altruism, respect, empathy towards people, etc., because, fortunately, because at a certain point we realize and see that what is ideal is an attitude of empathy, love, compassion, altruism. So even when we see the contrary in the other, we judge it negatively. Look at that person, how egoist, or how angry, and it should be better for him to be more compassionate, etc. And when we see someone who is compassionate, we say, that's so nice. So what develops is this reference of what is good
empatia, amore, compassione.
with an attitude of love, compassion, and empathy, which is wonderful. But the risk is when this turns against us, when it becomes the referent point in order to nurture our own ego, where the point is not actually to love the other, but being the one who loves, is not feeling empathy, but having empathy. Is not being altruistic, is not feeling that the happiness of the other is important to us, but being the one who is Buddhist or who is altruist, because I believe that a good person is an altruistic person. So, look how good I am. So this is something that we need to, in general, be careful.
E questo riguarda anche la meditazione.
And this is also about meditation. It can happen that at a certain point one is able to meditate a bit better with better concentration, and we start saying, look how good practitioner I am. You know, I was able to stay 10 minutes on the object. From one side is wonderful to be happy and rejoice of these things, and on the other side is better to nurture our ego with these things rather than with the opposite. One that wants to nurture his ego with an attitude of empathy and altruism is much better rather than the opposite. But when this happens, it's as if it were like a sort of plastic layer that you can see, but it doesn't allow to permeate. So the path is there, the practice is there, but it's not allowing it to permeate ourselves, actually. So this is what in the Lojong, the mental
Viene detto, là d'où tu mi up.
Training, it is said, these two advice that are called not allowing that gods transform into demons and not eating food that is poisoned. So not allowing divinities or gods to become demons is not allowing that the practices that we need to overcome our egoism, developing a profound level of love towards ourselves and others, etc., not allowing them to become something that actually increase our own ego and saying, look, I'm so good, I have so much humility, I am so good because I meditate well, etc., etc. Because in the end, what we want is to reduce our own obsession of self-gratification, including the other, developing altruism, and in the end, this becomes a tool in order to go against ourselves. Specifically in the Lojong, this refers to the fact that the path to develop altruism sometimes can become an object to nurture our own ego. Saying, look how good I am. So one needs to be careful that when this happens, we are transforming something wonderful into something terrible. This is why it's called, with this metaphor, saying not allowing gods or divinities to transform into demons, while not eating poisoned food is similar. The food is something that nurtures us. And if I put some poison in it, of course, it's not good for us. And similarly, our practice, our meditative practice, our spiritual practice is something that has to nurture us. But if I put on top of it some poison, that then it becomes a tool to nurture our own ego, then I poisoned it. So I can stay hours doing mantras, meditating in silence, doing many wonderful things, but in the end, this is polluted by this primary objective of being a good practitioner. I'm saying this simply because, first of all, we're not here to play. We're not here to do good Buddhists. We are here because we want to feel well. I imagine, at least. Because we want to find a balance inside of us, sustaining others that are around us. In simple words, being part of the solution, not of the problem. So this is a path that we have to follow. We can talk about this openly because I believe we're all on this path. We made this example with the image of the map of the calm abiding. There is the fact that we need to get out of our house. We need to get out of the place where we are hiding, where we are living in this, inside these four walls, and we believe that that's the universe. Somehow this movement we already did. What we need to be careful is to not see the beautiful world, all the mountains, etc., seeing the path, and then going back to our house, putting all the images inside of the house, and we go back to our house, closing our house and looking at the image of the path, or we buy all the books that show us all the paths, how they are and how we should follow them. What we need to do is to walk. And to walk is an effort. It means that there could be risks, and we need to jump in the darkness. We need to find ourselves in front of situations that we don't know how they are. It's an effort. The other day I read an article of a woman from New Zealand that has a new record, global record of walking of running in the mountain on all the Alps.
Ok, non è per me.
It's not something for me. The previous record was like 50 days, and she did in 29. And when she talks about it, she says, I was running in the mountains 18 hours a day, sleeping 1 hour and a half or 2 hours, burning like 4,000, 5,000 calories per day. Like adding up all the uphills is like doing 12 times the Everest. And she said, I had pain in all my body. The first 3 days was torture. The 5th day, it was even worse. After the 2nd week, I started to feel better. And one says, oh my gosh, how much effort. But what brings someone to do this? Okay, we need to ask the person. In my logic, I make some difficulty to understand, but there is a reason, there is a desire, there is something that makes me say, oh wow, something that gives also joy in that path. And when we talk about our own spiritual path, it's something. One of the similar things is that we need consistency. And here there is something very different from what this woman did and what we need to do in this analogy. She put herself in her mind that she needed to do it in 30 days, but we are not in a rush. One of the things that I see is that, maybe I'm wrong, but I have this sensation that in our modern Western world, we have this tendency of wanting to finish things with a lot of rush. So we want to already arrive to the result. Even on a more simple level, if we need to do one path from here to there, and we have 4 different possibilities, we have the tendency to choose which one? The faster. This is our tendency, is not to choose the most beautiful one or the one where we can learn more things. Because the most important thing for us is not even arriving, but how we transform in this path, how this path transforms us. In a travel, what is important usually is not where we go, but the path that brings us there, how it transforms us. But we have this idea that we want to arrive quickly with not a lot of effort to our destination. When we apply this to the spiritual path, it's something that goes against us. First of all, because what happens is that when we start a path, at a certain point we see that things are not happening in the time that we were expecting, and we say it's not possible. How is it possible? I've been here for 30 years and I'm still here. It happened to me in the past, something coming to me saying, Lama, look, Dharma doesn't work. And I said, please explain. I've been here for 30 years and nothing happened. And here we have two cases. One is, okay, you put the label of Buddhist for 30 years, but did you practice? Because it's like the meditation. If we learn how to meditate and we say, I did the course of meditation 30 years ago, but in these 30 years, did you practice? Sometimes. How much? Sometimes. Maybe one time for a period of time, once a week, then just once in a while, then some days pass without doing anything, but we need consistency. And then we have those who say, no, it doesn't work. It happened that someone said this to me, and I said, okay, but 20 years ago and now, do you confront the situation in the same way? No, I'm better. Do you suffer with the same things? No, much less. Are you more patient? Yes. So how you come here and say it doesn't work? This is already one example, but then there are many others to come together. Sometimes we expect things, mystical things, miraculous things, that at a certain point we have visions that appear, or voices that we can hear, or clairvoyances. But the realizations that we're looking for is calmness, stability, patience, love, empathy, love, coherency, harmony, wisdom. This is what we're actually looking for. So this makes me come to my mind, and once when Lama Michel Rinpoche was in the United States and a person arrived, a man that he didn't know, just to give you a view, he was quite big. He went to Lama Ganchen and said, Rinpoche, I heard that in Tibetan Buddhism there's these techniques in order to learn how to levitate. Is it possible? Can you teach me? And Lama Ganchen said, look, yes, these techniques exist, but in order to learn them, you can, but then in order to levitate, for instance, some meters, you need to spend 25, 30 years of consistent practice. And nowadays we have lifts. He said, use this time not to want to levitate, but to want to develop compassion, stability, joy, love. And it's much better for you. So what happens is, if we see someone levitating, we would be ready to prostrate. Look at this wonderful special person. He's able to do this and that. But the real special qualities is profound and unconditional love, is a level of presence, humility, stability, wisdom. This is what we really want to look for, both in someone, but especially for ourselves. So the realizations refer to these aspects. I remember once Kyabje Trichan Rinpoche said, if you do a practice of meditation, no matter what, you want to see if it's working or no. After some years that you practice, if you become a more stable, balanced, and patient person, more loving, etc., and you become a better person, it means it's a good practice for you. If you do the practice and you don't develop as a person, means you need to do something else, that this is not for you, because the objective is transforming our inner qualities. This is the main objective that we have in front of us. I wanted to say all of this to arrive to this point. The meditation unidirectional meditation is important, is a very wonderful tool. But what I see is that the majority of us, I don't know how many of you are able to receive these teachings on concentration and process of developing shamatha and calm abiding, and you take one sabbatical year to do just this. It's difficult, no? So what happens is we need to integrate it in our everyday life, but at the same time we need to cultivate love towards ourselves, towards others, generosity, morality, patience, enthusiastic force, joy, gratitude, wisdom. We need to concentrate on all of this at the same time, because the risk that I see in this is that one will do all this summary of its path just in this meditative state of unidirectional concentration. And if you do this in a certain period of time where you concentrate just on this, then it makes sense. For instance, there was one practitioner in Tibet I knew. We went to a cave where Milarepa used to meditate, and at halfway there was a cave where there was a practitioner, and he was there doing his retreat, and he explained to us that he received the teachings on to simplify on love, compassion, correct view of reality. He went to do a retreat on this, then he came back, then he received the teachings on the preliminary practices, purifications, request of blessings, and he did other 100 days of retreat just on that. And then at a certain point, he did a retreat of 100 days just on Kala Chakra, and then his master gave him teachings on how to breathe correctly in order to do exercises of inner yoga called Trulkor. And he did other 100 days in the cave just of breathing, when he didn't even do any prayer or mantras, just breathing for 100 days. Then he came back. At this point he learned other exercises and did another retreat of 100 days just of these exercises of Trulkor. And then he did another retreat, putting everything together. Taking some periods of time in order to do a practice in an intense way, it's very wonderful. But in general, in our life, in our everyday life, we need to put together the various aspects, because otherwise the risk that I see is that one puts just the part of concentration, meditative concentration, as main part of the practice, leaving behind developing love, patience, gratitude, etc. And this, honestly, I don't think is very good. Is it clear? So, listening to the teachings, reflecting on them, applying them in our everyday life, everything is fundamental. And in between, we have different kinds of meditations that we need to do. For instance, meditation to develop patience, meditation to develop compassion, meditation on love, as the one that we explained with the rays of light going from the heart towards all beings. So all of this is an important part, and on the other hand, we don't have to enter in the extreme of saying, okay, I do just the concentration or I don't do it completely. So what I invite you to do is trying to have this balance that unites developing love towards ourselves, towards others, the part of taking refuge, doing the part that is observing our own mental defilements, applying the antidotes, familiarizing with the qualities, and amongst these, also concentrating on the part of unidirectional concentration, being present in the present moment, so uniting both aspects. Is it clear?
Adesso
Now, there's a point that I did not explain in these days that I wanted to add. I wanted to explain just to not leave it there in the air, because maybe it's something that someone could ask themselves without entering into too much detail, which is developing shamatha and vipassana within the practices of Vajrayana, which is slightly different. For example, self-healing practice, or Yamantaka sadhana, or Vajrayogini, many others. How does this happen? In the self-healing practice, for example, one sits down, first we breathe, etc., and we start visualizing. We visualize the environment around, then we bring the attention to the inside. There is the central channel, two lateral channels, the 5 chakras. Within each we have the 5 Buddhas, etc. When we are doing this, naturally, we are training in concentration, because ideally, where will the mind stay? Inside, observing and imagining the channels, the symbols, the Buddhas. And ideally, while we're doing this, the mind is not going in other places doing something else. So we're developing this state of presence and concentration. The difference is that this presence and concentration is not on a fixed object, but is on more object and in the process that is happening. But it's the same process of avoiding numbness and mental agitation. I can do the practice of self-healing completely with a numb mind, and between one thing and the other, maybe the head falls down and maybe I fall asleep a bit, and then I am able somehow to finish the practice. Or I can do the practice that I'm sitting there so well, perfectly, doing all the mudras correctly, but I'm thinking at something completely different. So in the self-healing practice, we need to apply also here what we talked about these days. So doing what we can to have presence, avoiding mental numbness, avoiding mental agitation on a gross level and on a subtle level. And here there is a key point. First of all, the visualizations, even the complex ones, we need them in order to develop our mind in concentration. And there is also an exercise called the line of the nose that I like, and is an exercise quite peculiar, but we can explain it in order to give you an idea on how we can use with the visualizations the development of concentration. One thing is what we said, so I do the practice of self-healing, visualizing different chakras, Buddhas with every detail, and I stay on this, passing from one image to another, concentrating on each, and when the mind goes somewhere else, I take it back. And this also when we're doing the mantras. If we do a retreat, when we're accumulating mantras while we're reciting them, the visualization is on the seed syllable with the mantra around it, in the heart chakra, for example, with Akshobhya, with the mantra of Akshobhya, Om Akshobhya Hom. And I keep the concentration on this. And if the mind goes somewhere else, I take it back here. If we don't have clarity of the mantra of the seed syllable, then I need to generate more clarity. So I keep the same logic of avoiding mental numbness and agitation, having memory and a hook of vigilance, and this stays the same. One of the techniques that we can do, but I say it just to have an overview to explain, we visualize on the tip of our nose a small vajra, and the vajra is this object. But let's say half of this, it's smaller, it's small. Where the central part, there is this sphere, is big like half a centimeter, something like this. So it means visualizing on the tip of our nose a small sphere, and inside of this sphere, there is a whole world. It's like we're entering in this small ball, small sphere, and we have the environment, the mountains, the lakes, the rivers, and within we have a lotus flower with a cushion of sun and moon, on top of which there is Buddha. He's sitting there with all the details, how he's dressed, with his mudras, how he has his hair, with the jewels representing his qualities. And then we enter inside of his central channel, and within we have the different channel, and within each we have the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, and we have all the small details when we enter in all the hearts of each of them, where we have the lotus flower, where we have the cushion of sun and moon, and then we have the seed syllable with the mantra around it. And then we do kind of a zoom out where we see again the Buddha, and then we see the environment, and going back again we see this sphere, and then we go back again and we have ourselves, until we're able to visualize all the environment around us. And then we do again a zoom in, and we see our body, our central channel, the Buddhas. We go back to our tip of the nose, you enter, there is the environment, there is Guru Buddha, there is the Buddhas, and doing this zoom in and zoom out. And we need to train on this also to develop the relativity of space. And in certain cases, doing exercises where we don't have a fixed object, but an object that somehow evolves and moves, it's easier. But it requires an ability of staying there with many details and many things. It is said that the first level of realization on the stage of generation stage is when one is able to visualize the whole mandala in the practice of self-healing. So the mandala of the body, ourselves with the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, the 5 chakras, etc. And is able to stay in this with all the details without mental agitation or mental numbness for 2 hours. This would be the first level of realization of the generation stage. What I want to say is that there is a path that is possible to follow, and when one does the self-healing practice, for instance, it's not something that is completely separated or different from the process of developing meditative concentration. A step forward.
Lo stato della concentrazione.
The state of concentration is made of 2 parts. One is called shamatha and the other vipassana. Shamatha is about unidirectional concentration, and vipassana, the analytical mind that observes the object. In Tantra, this we develop not in a consecutive way. In the sutra, first we develop shamatha and then vipassana. And in Tantra, we do it together in a parallel way. And I'm saying this just to hint at it, because it's very complex. What happens is, first we generate correct motivation on the basis of love and compassion and bodhicitta. We induce ourselves in a state of bliss. And within this state, we meditate on the emptiness of intrinsic existence. The fact that reality appears as if it exists in an autonomous, independent way, but is not. So the object of meditation is the emptiness of intrinsic existence of what it appears to us as if it were. And I do this also towards myself, towards the I. So I recognize that I appear to myself as if I existed in an autonomous way, and I recognize that I'm not like this. This is the object of unidirectional meditation. So I stay with the mind on this emptiness of intrinsic autonomous existence. While I'm staying with the mind on this, I visualize the body, the central channel, all the Buddhas, and all that it appears. So while we're doing the practice, there are all these visualizations, quite complex. On one side, my mind visualizes everything that happens with a ray of lights that go to all the beings, helping them and coming back, etc., etc. There's many things happening. And while all of this is happening, one part of the mind is fixed in emptiness of intrinsic existence. This is what is represented when we see the 5 Dhyani Buddhas on the mudras. There is the left hand in the mudra of meditative concentration, so the part of the mind that realizes the emptiness of intrinsic existence with unidirectional concentration, and the other hand that represents the action. And this represents the union of these two aspects. And in this process, one tries to do this, and while we're doing it, we have to avoid mental numbness and mental agitation, having presence, clarity, intensity. And this is, I wanted to explain this aspect because otherwise there's someone that does the practice of self-healing, someone does maybe Tara practice or Vajrayogini, and one hears, so I'm not practicing concentration, I need to abandon all of this and trying to concentrate only on something else. No. Within these practices, if we do them correctly, there's all the part of developing meditative concentration as well. It's part of the path together. This to explain this, also when we do the preliminary practices, where we visualize in front of us Guru Buddha with rays of light that comes to our 5 chakras, the part of taking refuge, of visualizing all the sentient beings, we should try and do this applying what we saw these days in this practice as well. So what does this mean? I'm visualizing and I see that the mind is going somewhere else. Okay, come back, come to Guru Buddha, I want to get out of samsara. But maybe today there will be a lot of traffic. No, come back to Guru Buddha with the rays of light. I need to do this. So at a certain point, maybe I see that I have my mind that is a bit cloudy. Okay, let's go back to having clarity. The same tools, we need to apply them in the practice in general. And it's something that if we're able to apply this and have this awareness with some consistency, a lot of consistency, we can do a lot. The important thing is that we cannot do the practice for a while and then leave it, and then from in some days or some time you take it back. But I get bored doing the same thing the same day, all the days. But theoretically, we do the same things every day to train. Because one thing is doing spiritual tourism. I learn many practices, I know here, from there, but at a certain point I need to choose where to live. I traveled, I knew many cities, many places, I saw many things, great, wonderful, but at a certain point I need to stay. So, one of the positive things is that there is part of the practices called the preliminary practices that we need for all the other practices. So if someone does well this part, then after is like saying, okay, it's like building the basis of the house, doing it well. But then you can build whatever on top of it. So the part of the breathing, of the correct posture, of breathing correctly, bringing the mind in the present moment, generating love towards ourselves with the taking refuge, and generating love towards others with bodhicitta, visualizing the field of merit, doing the practice of the 7 limbs, doing the part of purification, requesting the blessings. These are the foundation. And on top of this, we can build many things. So I invite you to put some emphasis in the foundations done well, because when those are done correctly and well, all the rest comes naturally. And more easier. We have the tendency, I repeat once again, to want to have quick results. When we do things in order to have quick results, the tendency is that they don't last much. But here we want results that can be stable in time. And this requires a way of practicing where one has faith in what we're doing without attachment to the result. What happens sometimes is that if we don't see an immediate result, it's like we lose faith in what we're doing. Or either because the system is not good, or because we're not able to do it, or because we're doing it badly, etc., etc. But it's important for us to have this attitude of having consistency. And brings so much more benefit, this consistency. And this takes me back. This is faith and consistency. So faith is trusting in what I'm doing, and consistency. And this takes me back to two interesting stories. One is, once there was this teacher, this master. When I read the story, there was the name, the context, but unfortunately I don't remember. Anyways, there was this master, and he was about to leave for a travel, and traditionally these travels were very, very far, very long, so months and months. So all the disciples would go in line to say goodbye to the teacher, and they were all there in a queue with the teacher. And one of these disciples, he was treated as... he was not taken very seriously, let's say, because he would not understand anything. The teachings were given, and he was always the one who would never understand, even when you taught in 20 different ways. And then he would ask something, making you understand that he didn't understand anything. He was not the smartest, but he was always there. The teacher was passing through these people to say goodbye, to leave for this trip. And the disciple asked him, "Master, please, can you give me the practice of my life?" He looks at him. They had some intimacy, and he looks at him and he says, "Meditate until a horn grows on your head." And of course he was joking. So the master went away, he came back, and the disciple was not there anymore. And he said, "But what happened? Let's wait a bit." So some time passes, 2 years, something like this, and he did not see him anymore. And one day he asks, "Did you see this disciple?" to the other people. And they said, "No, please go ask and see what happened. Maybe something happened." So they went looking for him to his family house. And they said, "Look, he is in a mountain, in a cave in the mountain, meditating." And they went back to the master and said, "Look, this is where he is." And he said, "Okay, please go and find them." It was a few days of trip to arrive there. So these disciples went there, 3-4 days walking, and they arrived to the cave. And finally they found him. And he was there meditating. And he had a horn on his head. And they said, "Look, the master is looking for you. Please come back." And he said, "Look, it would be wonderful, but I'm not able to get out because the horn now is so big that I'm not able to get out of the cave." So they went back, 3-4 days of walk, going to the teacher, saying, "Look, this is what happened." So he understood and said, "Okay. So go and tell him to meditate until the horn disappears." So they again started walking 3-4 days, going to the cave, and they referred to him what the master said. And what he developed in 3 years, the horn, just in 3 days after, he was able to make it go away. So he developed a wonderful meditative concentration with this horn, because his only thought for 3 years was this horn growing on his head. So he really took it seriously, and at the end he developed such a clear concentration and clarity of mind that when he came back, the teachers gave him all the teachings, and he was able to meditate on other topics, which was not the horn, and he was able to reach different levels of realizations before others that were considered more intelligent than him. So this to say that usually faith with perseverance and continuity sometimes is even better than a great level and great deal of comprehension and knowledge. Sometimes knowing a lot, it's not very useful, because after that we know so much, it's like we get confused on what to do. I know 25 different practices. I know them in a lot of detail. On what do I do now? There's also a proverb in Tibet saying, from Atisha, if you're falling and you see that there are many ropes, you just need one. But you need to hold on tight. It's not like it's not like saying, okay, maybe I take this, maybe I take that, and then you fall down. So Atisha said, you Tibetans practice 100 divinities and you don't even realize one. And us Indians, we practice only one and we realize 100. So sometimes knowing a lot, having a lot of knowledge, can create this situation where one doesn't even know what to do and ends up don't doing anything seriously. So the example of this guy with the horn on the head is an example that when there is faith in what we're doing, we have certainty of what we're doing, I put myself with perseverance and continuity, this brings a lot of results. The other example is a situation quite similar in the beginning. So the teacher is leaving for a trip. One of the disciples goes there and says, can you please give me the practice of my life? He looks at him and he says jokingly, this disciple had a very big nose with a lot of pores. And he says to him, your nose seems a rudra. A rudra is a rudraksha, is a seed that in India we use to do some malas, that has a lot of pores. And he says, your nose seems a rudra. Of course, they were in India, they were in India, so he was speaking Sanskrit. So the teacher goes away, then he comes back and doesn't see the disciple anymore. And one day he gets sick and he has a lot of pain in the throat, and he takes many medicines and he's not healing. And at a certain point, someone says, oh, look, there's a healer in the village that now is kind of hip and everybody loves him. It seems like he's very good. Do you want me to call him? And he said, okay, let's try. We tried everything, so let's try also this. So at a certain point, he arrives, this person with a lot of humility, and the teacher says, I think I know this guy. At a certain point, he concentrates and starts recitating, your nose seems a rudra, your nose seems a rudra, your nose seems a rudra. The teacher understands that it was his disciple and that he mistook this joke for the practice and started laughing so much, and this laugh was so, and he started coughing and started coughing all the plaques that he had in his throat that he healed. So he was able to be healed with a mantra that was not even a mantra. So the base is faith, consistency. Faith, trust, and consistency is one of the most powerful things that exist. So this doesn't mean that it's the same thing to recite Babi Bobu with consistency and faith, and then you will have some effect, or doing the mantra of Tara, for example. Then there are other stories of one that spent his whole life in cave doing the practice of Yamantaka without having the basis of love and compassion, bodhicitta, correct view of reality, simply visualizing as this being with, Yamantaka is quite peculiar, with 9 heads, 16 legs, 32 arms, very ferocious. He spent his life doing this visualization, and he was reborn as a spirit that was very similar to Yamantaka, so the result is not quite good. So this is an example of saying, okay, even if we put perseverance on something, we also need to put energy in the right thing. But if we were to ask and if we had in front of us the genie of the lamp offering us, what do you want? Would you want to have a lot of intelligence, knowing many things, a lot of knowledge? Or do you want to understand one and having consistency and perseverance? I would prefer to understand one with perseverance and consistency, because our objective is not doing the practice, is transforming our mind. And when I have one tool that does it, I need to use it, because I can buy the whole pharmacy. But if I don't take well the medicine, it's not quite useful. If I take correctly one cure, then it will work. So what I wanted to bring is this, the fact that to know how to meditate is important, but it works meditating. And it doesn't work meditating just sometimes like this. It works when we have some consistency. And here there is an important point. We need to be careful not to enter in this state of enthusiasm where one does a lot and then after a while we get tired. We want to do 2 hours a day of meditation. Do half an hour. No, but I want to do 2 hours. Do half an hour. But you do it also tomorrow and then the day after that. And then once we're able to have some consistency, sometimes we want to do more. Great, that's great. There are days that are intensive days of meditations or periods of time of retreats that is wonderful. But if one has to choose, is it more important the intensive practice just once in a while or a little bit but with consistency? I believe it's better having more consistency. Lakpaga once told me, remember to be like an ant and not like a flea, because the flea does a big jump and then stops for a while, and then another big jump and stops, while the ant does small steps but never stops and arrives faster than the flea. The risk is that when we do big jumps and when we stop, actually what happens is that when we stop, we are not stopping, we are actually going backwards. It's like putting a lot of effort to lift something up, and it's like I get tired, and so then it goes back. So then I put a lot of other effort going up, and then I get tired and it goes down. While if I do slowly bringing and lifting up a heavy object, I'm able to do it. This doing things slowly, but with consistency does much more. So it comes to my mind an image on how much the small does the different. If I remember correctly, in Venice, in Piazza San Marco, there is an obelisk, a huge obelisk, and they took it there, but nobody was able to lift it up because it was too heavy. And it stayed many years in the square of the city, but laying down, because nobody had the technique of lifting it up. And at a certain point, a guy arrived with a name, but I don't remember right now the name, and he said, I'm able to do it. What did the city of Venice offer to who was able to do that? Whatever he or she wanted. So he was able to lift it up. How? He attached a system with ropes, but there was no other weight that could counteract it. So he was able to put these ropes completely tight, and he wet the rope, and then he left it, and when he left it, and when he left it to dry, it would become shorter, and this means he was able to put something underneath it. So again, the next day he would put other ropes, wetting them, And in 2 years, he was able to lift up this obelisk. And he said, I don't want anything with money. I just want a place in the center of the square, a place to sell tickets of the lottery, and I want to be the only one who's able to do that. But if we imagine this, of being able to do this, what is half a centimeter to lift something so huge up? But is this half centimeter every day, one on top of the other with consistency, that we're able to do? If we want to do everything right away, it doesn't really work most of the time. But this consistency is something that, unfortunately, in our modern times, we kind of lost it. Because we're used to the tomatoes coming from the supermarket, for instance. We're not used to plant them, to see that one has to plant them and have the patience to cultivate the earth, and we need time in order for it to harvest. And nature naturally teaches us that things are gradual and that we need time. And our mind is the same. And this illusion of this having things immediately, because to us it seems immediate. We go to the supermarket, we take the salad, and we take it. But how did it arrive there? We don't care. We will very soon probably have a 3D printer that will do salad. The point is that we don't care how it arrived there. We just want it immediately. But things need graduality and need care. But for our mind, we try to do these quick jumps with some pills, and we look for some kind of miracle. And by miracle, we mean something where we don't need to put effort, we don't need to put consistency, and then things just happened. But the truth is, no. So I invite you to think, okay, I do one small step at a time. But what I do with consistency. There's another fundamental concept that needs to go together. We saw the map. And by seeing the map, there are 2 important points: where I find myself in the present moment, where I want to arrive, and the path between the two. Let's look at that image again. Let's recognize where we are. And there's a peculiar thing, because where we are, where we find ourselves, getting out from the house, it's not that we got out of the house from one day to another. There's a whole path there that brought us to where we are here, that is not to be taken for granted. And if we look around us, it's not something that happens with the majority of people, unfortunately. But because we don't have awareness of the path that we did that allowed us to arrive here, it's as if we are completely at the beginning. But actually, it's not really like this. So there's a side of rejoicing of where we are right now. There are those that are not even in the beginning of the path. They don't even know that it exists. They don't even have the wish, because they don't even know that it exists. So we cannot desire something that we don't know it exists. We don't even feel the need for it. So we find ourselves already in a very good starting point. Then we look at the objective, and being able to imagine the result, and imagining ourselves as the result, is a wonderful step and very important. It's something that we should not take for granted. And then imagining the different steps. When we imagine the result and we desire it, for instance, imagining ourselves with this state of shamatha and vipassana, with this state of unidirectional concentration, with the mind that stays on the object without numbness or agitation, in a state of bliss, both with body and mind. Imagining ourselves in this state and developing a desire, aspiration of wanting to reach it, amongst other things, is like putting some seeds, creating these imprints in order for them to grow and bloom. Yesterday I said that Dragon Rinpoche, my teacher, taught me the first thing we need to do in order to make it happen is to desire it. And reading it on from the other side, if we don't desire something, it will not happen. We will not reach a place where we don't want to go if we are the ones that need to walk towards it. So this is already a lot. And once we positioned all of this, at this point, then we cultivate this faith and cultivate this desire. I want to, how wonderful would it be to be there, without the rush of already being there. This is important. We are not in a rush of already being arriving there. Because otherwise we enter in this dynamic saying, it's many years that I'm here doing this path, but my mind still goes to all places and I will never be able. But this actually is a It's a form of laziness where we take ourselves down in order to not to do what we know is important that we should do. So the important concept at the basis here is the starting point that is quickest and fastest to arrive to the result is where I find myself right now. We don't need to say, how wonderful would it be to reach the ninth stage of samadhi by being at the 8th stage. That would be much easier. If I did not have this mental numbness, it would be easier. Yes, of course, I agree. But anyways, where do I have to start from in order to arrive there? From where I am. And if I keep putting in front of these kinds of phrases saying, but if I lived in an environment where I did not have distractions, and if I was born in a monastery with Lama Tsongkhapa guiding me, at that point I would have been able, I would be able to do this and that, and if this and if that, and if, I will stay still. I will not move. And someone would probably say, yes, Lama, but if. No. It's like once I was talking about the life of Lama Tsongkhapa with someone saying, wow, how wonderful Lama Tsongkhapa's life with the retreats and everything he did. And the person said, if I also had those conditions, I would also do. But we're talking about him. And when we're talking about us, we need to start from who we are and what we have. So we should not stay there saying, if I had this, if I had that. Of course, we can recognize our needs in order for us to obtain them, of course, but we need to start from where we are. And this is for everybody. And everybody always did this and followed this. One of the great meditators and practitioners of Tibetan Buddhism, Milarepa, he did not start from a place that was already advanced. No, actually he started from a very difficult starting point. Inside of him, he had this state of not feeling absolutely well, and he also tried to kill himself 4 times. He was completely desperate. Then, after all his path, at a certain point, he was able to overcome this, and he became one of the best meditators of the history of Tibet. And there's this funny story that towards the end of Milarepa's life, he was saying goodbye to one of his main disciple, and he was leaving to teach Dharma, his disciple, and and that time they would travel by foot, and they knew they would not see each other again because Milarepa was already old, and to go and come back, it would be at least 1 year of travel. So when the disciple left, Milarepa did a small part of the path with him in the beginning, walking together, and then at a certain point Rechumpa, his disciple, said goodbye to him, and as per tradition, he looked at the disciple and started looking backwards without losing eyesight from him. Some, like Paponka Rinpoche, every time that says hi or goodbye to the teacher, always would walk backwards without losing sight of the monastery and then turning around. So anyways, Rechumpa was doing this, and when he was like 100 meters, he started to walk, and Milarepa at a certain point called him, please, come back. And he said, I forgot to give you the most important teaching. And I imagine Rechumpa saying, hi, thank goodness he reminded, no, because I was about to leave. So, thank you, master, please tell me. Milarepa turns around, giving him his back, lifts his skirt and shows him his glutes. And his glutes were not good looking, let's say. It was similar to the butt of a monkey. It was completely not completely, it was not smooth, it was so bad looking. And he says to his disciple, the most important teaching is to practice. And this was the signs of many years meditating on the stone. So he turns around saying, without effort, you don't have results. So what happens is, this doesn't mean that one needs to suffer in order to have results. It's not this, but we need consistency. And the beauty is that if one is able to create some consistency, 1 year is so much time. It's 365 meditations. If one takes 1 day by week to do half day of intensive practice, is 52 half days. And if this is done with consistency, it's like the game of running, passing the testimony. And this is like giving continuity. If we leave too much room in between, there's no way to develop this. So what we need to do is to start from where we are, but if we do it with consistency, then we're able to arrive anywhere. The other important concept is that the quickest path is the one that we're able to do. So the starting point is where we are. The quickest path is the one that I'm able to follow. Because if I look and say, yes, it would be easier to arrive on the top of the mountain if I were to climb the rock mountain. Yes, it's true. Climbing, you would arrive in 2 days. But doing the path, you would take 2 years. And you ask, what is the quickest path? The climbing or walking? We would say climbing the rock wall, but it depends. For example, for me, it would be quickest the path walking, because if I try to climb this wall of rocks, I would eventually fall down and break everything until I have the time to heal and everything. Probably it would take lifetimes. Or I say, no, I need to learn how to climb, so I go to train in order to climb. But maybe I need 4 years of training in order to climb. But in 2 years of walking, I would have been able to reach in a quicker way, in a faster way. So it's like Italian bureaucracy. With my experience is there are paths that are so long. So Let's start them without looking for
Questa è la mia esperienza.
without looking for shortcuts. And this is my experience. So the quickest path is the path that we are able to follow. And we need to start from where we find ourselves today. So we saw where we are, we saw where we want to arrive to, we saw the path that is in between, high objective, low expectation, and consistent effort. The low expectation is I don't impose on myself where I should already be. This is important. I put my energy in the small steps that I'm able to do. And in this moment, what is a small step? I sit down in the correct posture, I'm still, and I'm breathing. Great. We saw the technique, the breathing technique, where we breathe in light and breathe out black smoke in order to dissolve tensions. And this is important when we feel these strong emotions of fear, of envy, of jealousy. Or we saw the technique of counting, the breathing, inhale, exhale, 1, and we go on, and we saw this technique. We can do it where the mind completely loses the count, we go back to counting from 0. And when the mind is more evolved, then thinking of the breath, and we see that the mind goes away from the breath, then we can start back from count 0. Then we saw seeing the breathing in 4-8-8-4. It can be also less than 4-8-8-4. It can be 4-6-6-3, or what is more comfortable. I repeat once again, don't force the breathing. We have to start slowly, slowly, and allow it slowly to evolve. This is another technique that goes very well. Doing some minutes a day with breathing like this. If we start breathing, and we do every day some minutes a day, 10-15 minutes, it's more than enough. Then possibly repeating it more times. And then we can add attention on the object of meditation. That can be the sensation at the nostrils. It can be an object that we choose, like the face of the Buddha. We can take refuge, generating bodhicitta. Yesterday evening we did the preliminary practices, including the part of meditation on the object of meditation, so developing concentration. We can do it also in this way. When we are able to have more calmness, we do the preliminary with more calmly, then we do the practice of self-healing. If we are able to do the preliminaries well, then self-healing as well will come better. If I am quite agitated and start doing the practice directly, probably when we will finish the practice, it will be the moment where actually we would need to start it. But if first we sit down and we take our mind to the present moment, this does all the difference. What I want to say is, each and every one of us, we have tools, very valid tools, that are at our own disposal. But we need to use them. But there is something that we all can do. And in these days, for me, the main emphasis is experiment tools that are at our disposal, using them sometimes, then understanding where I can arrive, where I want to arrive, and slowly, slowly walk. Let's remind ourselves of the importance of the part of reducing desire, reducing aversion. So trying to avoid situations that are very strong, of desire and of aversion, of conflict, etc. Developing in our daily life the part of presence and vigilance. This is one of the most wonderful things, that when we meditate more, we can develop more presence in the things we do.
Una cosa che certi studi
One thing that some studies from the Western world saw, because some studies see meditation trying to understand the parameters in the bodies, for example, the waves of the mind, of the brain. And one of these parameters that were seen is that when the discursive mind is active, some waves are there, and when we don't have this inner dialogue, the mind has another frequency, and there's other waves of the brain. To not have these waves that are related to this inner dialogue, it doesn't mean that we're necessarily meditating. Is one of the collateral effects of meditation done correctly. And I remember once I went in Holland and there was this congress, and there were some different workshops, and in one of these they were doing this measurement of the waves of the brain in order to show the results of meditation, and they asked me to try it out. And I said, okay, let's try. So I concentrated. I did my practice of Tara before arriving there. I went there, I sat down. They put this thing on my head, he switched it on, and he told me, no, don't meditate yet. And I said, I'm not meditating. I'm not doing anything. Because they did not find these waves that were related to this inner dialogue. But I was not meditating. But to say that the objective... And then he said, okay, now meditate, and something changed, but it was not much the difference, because what he was actually measuring was this inner dialogue. But for me, one of the most important things that I always try to bring is the awareness in our daily life on how our brain works. And we can all do this, bringing awareness to what we're doing until we arrive to the awareness of what we're thinking and what we're feeling. So having this presence, I'm here, I'm doing this, I need to do that, I will do that. And this goes together with the practice. In my personal case, there is much that I did in this life, but I think I'm living much more of the results of past lives rather than what I did in this life. And this, for me, is one of the examples of the truth of rebirth and other lives. And sometimes I look at myself and I say, oh, what did I do in these 45 years? Because the most wonderful aspects of my character are there since I was younger. And this makes me think it's wonderful, these predispositions that we bring from life to life are amazing. But I look at myself and I say, what did I do in these 45 years? This to say that there are many qualities that we bring with us, and then there is also, of course, our lifestyle and what we do that has great impact. I was also speaking to Teacher Rinpoche recently, and he was telling me, any Tulku Lama reincarnated that was born with the most wonderful predispositions, if you don't put your ass on the cushion and you don't meditate, you can have all the best predisposition, they will stay just as seeds, they will not bloom. So we all need to do this. And here there's also another topic. If we are here today, it's because we created causes in the past. Where, how, we don't know. Yesterday, the day before, 10 lives ago, we don't know. But the point is that if we experience something in the present, is because the causes in the past were created. If I have some sort of interest for meditation and I have there some interest, is because somewhere I created the causes. Otherwise, I arrive here, I hear 2 words and I say goodbye, I go take a walk. It's more fun to take some sun and look at the phone. So what is here is that we all have some predispositions that we bring with us, and it's something beautiful. But we're not here asking ourselves why, how. We have predispositions, it's wonderful, and we need to use them at the best of our abilities. And one of the things is through the practice. And I repeat, the practice is during the meditative sessions and out of it. So when we talk about the creating correct conditions, is external conditions, the physical space, the temporal space, having a good influence, reading good things, reducing the stimuli that are not necessary. All of this has great effect already. I remember like 1 year ago, something like this, a friend telling me, Lama, I heard what you said. I closed all social media. I have them only for work, but on a personal level, I stopped using them. And after 1 week that I stopped, I realized I have time to read that before I didn't have. That it's not because I did not have time, but I did not have inner space. So we need to reduce the stimuli that are not necessary in order to have the inner space to do what in the end brings us more deeper, more in depth, and it's more important to us, and bringing awareness and vigilance in our daily life. This is another of the things that makes completely all the whole difference. An example of a practice that I really like, for example, we go to eat. How many times do we eat a day? More or less 3 times. Let's say it's 3 times. And we have 3 opportunities, important opportunities. When we sit down to eat, one of the things we can do, first of all, sitting 1 moment in silence. We can be grateful for the food that we have and grateful to all the people that were involved in having this food right here in front of us. We visualize at the center of our heart Guru Buddha, like we did the practice this morning, coming and sitting at our heart. When we eat, we imagine that the food that we're eating, when it comes in, the winds blow in the central channel, the fire grows, that divides this food, the good part and the less good part. The good part is offered to Guru Buddha at our heart, and Guru Buddha experience bliss. We experience this bliss, and what is left of this food is distributed and given to all the numerous beings that live within us. There are more beings that live inside of us than human beings that live in the world. So we offer to these microorganisms this food as an act of generosity. So we practice generosity, giving materially, love and protection to all these microorganisms that live within us, offering them food. We give them love because we do them as an act of love in order for them to be happy. We give them protection because we protect them from being hungry, giving them food. And we give them dharma, directioning our thoughts, saying, may through this offering, may I guide also these beings once I become a Buddha in this path. So we imagine that they receive this food, they are happy, and as a consequence, we have a flexible body, agile, that is able to do whatever we need to do, and a clear mind. This is a practice that is here for centuries. It's not that it's just here now because there is this trend of food. And Lama Michel Rinpoche in 1987, one of the first conferences that he did, he talked about making peace with microorganisms. So this is a moment of awareness. I'm eating with awareness. What is happening inside of me when I'm eating? There are many beings, so I nurture them and I transform this moment as a moment to practice generosity and love. And it's good for me and it's good for them. At least let's sit down and realize I'm eating, I'm sitting down and I'm about to eat. This is already something. But trying to bring this awareness in our everyday life, the objective of this awareness, of this vigilance, let's recall, the vigilance is the hook and the awareness is the rope. The awareness, memory, is I'm going to that place, is where I want to arrive. And vigilance is what am I doing now? Where am I going right now? So, for example, during our daily life, we go to talk to someone. There is a meeting, we need to meet someone or whatever. I go and I speak with that person. Memory, awareness. Which kind of attitude do I want to have with that person? I want to act in a respectful way. I don't have to speak on top of that person. I need to listen with an open mind, be free from preconcepts, trying not to judge the other, having an open attitude with love and respect. This is memory, awareness, what I want. Now we need vigilance. The other is speaking and I have this feeling I want to interrupt. No, don't interrupt. When vigilance works well, I see this desire of interrupting before interrupting. In the beginning, vigilance is not very good and one realizes just after. But the more we are able to develop this, the more we are able to realize things in the moment. Maybe we are not able to apply the antidote in the right moment, and then slowly we are able to recognize it in the moment and apply the antidote in the moment. And if we're able to do this in our daily life through the use of our word, our physical conduct, our way of interacting in our everyday life, we are training in this memory, awareness, mental presence, and when we sit down to meditate, it will be much easier. So one helps the other. And then there is another topic. If I am able to have vigilance and awareness of the way I speak, I can do it also on the way that I think. If I'm not able to do it in the way I speak, I will not be able to do it on the way we think. This is why we say body, speech, and mind. Because sometimes I hear, no, the most important thing is the mind, the rest is superficial. Okay, so then start from the superficial and then you arrive to the mind. So it doesn't mean to repress, but to give ourselves the correct direction. And the wonderful thing about this is that at a certain point we are able to have this vigilance in a very light way, in a very kind way, without force or strength. And we see that some emotion is emerging, is arising, there is some jealousy coming, and we can say, okay, I don't need you. You let it go and you don't take it. You see that fear is arising, okay, you let it go. Let it pass. For example, for me, with fear, I had to do it. When I had this anaphylactic shock, I was coming to the temple from the Labrang, and there was this insect that bit me, and I had a very strong allergic reaction that brought me to anaphylactic shock. But I do this path every day to come to the center. And the day after, when I was walking through that same path, many times arose again that memory and the thought of, but what if it happens again and I need to go through here? And what helped me is seeing this mind that was coming and not following it. Okay, you come and you go. Then I have with me the injection that I need in order to be ready if if something similar happens, but I took the good precautions, but I don't allow myself to be overcome by this. And the more we are able to catch the moment when it arises, this emotion is much easier to let it go. And this is a form of vigilance, awareness, and memory. So it's important to take what we saw these days together and bring it to our daily life in two ways: the formal practice and daily life practice. One sustains the other. And with this, we can do great steps, keeping a high objective with a low expectation. The low expectation regards not imposing on myself what I should already be, where I should already do. I walk in the correct direction, one little step at a time. There are some times where I will not be able to have awareness and vigilance, of course. There are times where I say to myself something, don't do, and I will do. Either way, of course. And there will be times where we will say to ourselves, don't do it, and we don't do it. And then slowly, we walk. Okay? So embracing ourselves with affection, with love, not staying there imposing what we should already be. This is very important. And sometimes I see that it seems difficult to put these two things together, walking towards what we want to become without imposing it to ourselves right away. But it's important to unite these two things, both on ourselves and on the others. When we are able to do on ourselves, we will do on the others. Otherwise, we will project on the others what we do with us. I'm happy that these days we were able to enter from the basis of meditation and see have a clearer view on what we intend for meditation, without taking out the importance and validity of the practices that to me are preliminary to the meditation, that are very important, and we don't take out their power and validity. But it's important for us to understand that our objective is not emptying our mind, but familiarizing with the qualities that we want to develop. And one should meditate in order for then not to meditate anymore, because that thing becomes spontaneous. If this becomes a habit, then it becomes spontaneous and natural. A Buddha meditates? No, because he already has reached this state. He doesn't need to familiarize. Then he is in a meditative state in a constant way, but that's another thing. The mind is already used to being in this unidirectional way. But there's not this action of needing to train. So let's walk one step at a time. We remind ourselves that meditating is to familiarize, and we need to familiarize to be in the present moment. And the positive collateral effects of these techniques also are to be given value and used. So, for example, it helps with anxiety and all these things. One small thing, there are some cases where meditation can be counterproductive, very specific, but I prefer to say. There are some cases of schizophrenia where what helps most is things that brings to the ground, so doing more material things and physical things. Staying too much within ourselves, this can increase this aspect of psychosis. So this is in order to be careful of it. So we need to be careful of this and need to pay some attention to it. But for the great majority of cases, to meditate is, of course, wonderful. So I thank all of you for these days together, to dedicate each and every one of you to dedicate part of your time and space for this path. As I said earlier, the most important thing is not to arrive quickly, but to walk in the correct direction, and this we're doing. And also what brings two people together, one to the other, is not that they are physically together, but that their heart and mind goes in the same direction. So as Lama Ganchen said many times, see you sometimes, see you every moment. Who wants to deepen these topics in the book Liberation in the Palm of Your Hands of Paponka Rinpoche, there are all the steps for developing meditative concentrations. Shamatha described very well. I did a summary, like 60 pages, something like this, but some parts were schematic, where all the passages of this path, where we have also the citation of parts of Paponka Rinpoche, and I hope I will be able to adapt this version and share with you in order to have a reference to go back to, in order to study, to remember, etc. One of the important things that I wanted to remind at the conclusion is that more we give value to something, more we are able to put it into practice and use it. The less we give value to something, the more we give it for granted, and at a certain point it enters in this automatic state. This is one of the reasons why when we start the teachings, we request traditionally the teachings. Buddha Shakyamuni always taught something based on a request. There is also a rule to who transmits the Dharma, that is, we don't teach something without being asked, and once it's asked and you are able to give and the other is able to receive, then you need to give. So for this reason is we do the offering of the mandala in the beginning, and now we do at the conclusion. But I wanted to remind a specific point that for me it's quite important, that if we are here together and we have this wonderful opportunity, is because this place exists. If this center did not exist and we didn't have people taking care of kitchen, reception, etc., etc., administration, etc., today we would not be here. So there is a part where I thank deeply everyone that make the center go on. The image that one person gave me one time got stuck. It's like we see this duck on top of a lake, and we see that it's very calm, but under the water you see that there are the legs going very fast, in the sense that there is a lot of movement, there's a lot of things happening in order for all of this to be possible. Years ago, I proposed a challenge to the center, and until now it's kind of working. That is that Dharma activities are completely free. In the beginning, the tendency, as everywhere, you do a course of 4 days, there is a price, a fixed price. In my personal life, I never paid to receive Dharma teachings, but at the same time, I never received teachings without making an offering. The offering that I always did is also when someone asks me, or what I do, is the correct offer is what is not too much and not too less. So it's not enough when it's just a formality, and it's too much when it starts hurting. Like, it's too much. So we need to offer what for us is the correct thing, and I ask you to do this offering to the center, because if the center were not here, we would not be able to stay here right now. And I'm also in the part of the administration, and I know all the inner parts of operational sides of the center, and I know how much it's difficult to keep all things together.
Sotto al naso, non sotto la bocca.
The water is always under the nose, not under the mouth. So I really ask that there is this awareness, and if you feel that you received some benefit, please do an offering to the center, not with the intent of paying for what we received, but of offering so that others can receive. And here is a paradigm shift that is going from I pay for something that I obtain to I offer in order for others to benefit from it. It's like in some restaurants, it's rare where you go pay or you order what you want, and when you pay, it's like zero because someone else paid for you. You can leave whatever you want for the next person that will come. And the main difference is that on an energetical level, karmic level, the action that we do, it's completely different when we have the weight of having to pay in order to obtain something for myself, or when I have the joy of offering to others. It can be the same quantity of money. It doesn't matter, but the attitude and the direction of the action is completely different when we offer and there is the joy of offering, and when there is the weight of needing to pay. One action is egoistic and directed towards me, and the other is altruistic, directed towards the other. And the beautiful thing is that if we all act in this way, where we can all offer for the others, then we all benefit from it. So I ask you to please have this awareness and sustain the center, because the center is of every one of us. And sometimes there's the risk, not always, but sometimes there's the risk that the center, because it's of everybody, is of no one. But the center needs to be of everybody and each and every one of us. So we need to take care at the best of our abilities. Then there are those that have some responsibilities because have some role, but the center is of everybody at the same level. So I ask for you to have this awareness. Once in Tibet, the Dharma was sustained with big sponsors, which were the kings, that covered the costs related to everything. But that time has changed. It stopped. So we are in a more democratic era, and the concept is, if the center is here and everything that we have exist is here, it's for the effort of everybody. There is who gives 1, who gives 1,000, who gives 1,000,000, which is very rare. It happened one time during the construction of the temple, our friend Shirley. But what happens is that, for example, that time when she did this huge offering, and I went there to thank her, and she said, look, I'm not doing anything more than other people from the Sangha. The only difference between me and the others is that I'm rich and they're not. But what I'm doing is not more than the others. It's what's in my abilities and possibilities. The point is not what is more worthy. The point is how the value that it has for us. Of course, when we are building the temple, if one offers 1 or 1,000,000, it's different, because what we can do materially with that different amount of money is different, but the quality of the energy of the action doesn't change. So I make this request that is not a request of material help. It's a request of a paradigm shift, where all of us, we take care and we can make it possible so that the center can continue working for the benefit of all. So I ask every one of you to do an offering to the center in order to sustain it. and doing this paradigm shift, creating this habit. My personal experience is that when we create a habit of the joy of offering, to me personally, it always gave me a lot in return. And there is another topic here, closing the parenthesis here, is I imagine that you received some benefit coming here. Imagine what you can do to bring this benefit to one person. Maybe one or two you can do. But to do it to hundreds or thousands of people, how can you do? We're not able. But if I participate in what does it, indirectly I'm doing it. It's like I'm taking some parts of a company, I share part of the profit, but the profit here is not in economical terms. It's bringing the Dharma to people, and we're all doing it. So because it's not even my person, I am part of the whole. Alone, I would not be able to do all of this. I would be able to do just 1% of what I do here. So each and every one of us, when we are part of this whole, we receive also part of the benefit. It's a long-term investment. And in other words, all those that arrive here and receive some benefit from the center is because the center exists. I am part of sustaining this virtuous cycle. This just to remind us, because sometimes we can fall in the trap of living in a paradigm of capitalism where I pay for what I obtain, and there is this relationship that is very much based on weighing the money for what I want and not as an energy that I can offer and everything else. And sometimes we're not able to give value to what doesn't have an economical value. If I put a course on meditation, 300 euros a day, who pays? Will say, now I need to meditate because I paid. There was an Indian teacher that did an initiation of $1 million, and he had like a queue for it for 11 years, and he was using that money to help people in India, humanitarian projects, and probably he would give the same initiation for free to other people, but he used this hook of the Westerner world that says if it has a high price, then it means it has high value, which is not the case. But in my view, when we share the Dharma, we share the best we can. And one of the reasons why we don't put price on Dharma teaching is because it's priceless. Otherwise, we would put, 10,000 euros per day would still be not enough. So it's important for us. It's not because we're not paying it that it doesn't have value. And we need to have this exchange in order for all of this to work. And the best exchange we can do, and I ask with all of my heart, the most wonderful offering you can do is to put into practice what we saw. Because even if we want that the Dharma stays for the next generation, it also depends on how much this generation puts into practice the Dharma. When we say the future is in the hands of the young, it's not true. The future is in the hands of the present, that then transforms into the future. So each and every one of us putting things into practice, changing our conduct, this slowly is part of the change of everything else. So thank you. During this month, we will have other occasions to stay together. We will have this next week the summer camp with the kids, and we will dedicate the center just to this activity without having other activities going in parallel. Otherwise, I will not be able to dedicate so much time to them. The kids are 67, sleeping in a tent. This is from the 7th to the 14th. Then we have the week of Dharma Natura from the 15th of August and many other things together. Now we do the offering of the mandala as to say thank you to all of the masters of the lineage and all the teachers that allowed us to be into contact with the Dharma.
Sangye Shinto Mikte Ulwarki Drokun Namdashi Chopar Shojetsulame Kotserapten Chinam Kar Tingle Chochurge Padam Lo Santempe Sumki Drowen Seltaktu Negyurchi Idam Guru Ratna Mindrala Kam Niryatayami. Facciamo le nostre dediche.
Let's do our dedications. We dedicate all the positive karmic force that we generated in these days so that every one of us can put into practice these teachings, developing a state of inner peace, wisdom, in order to help all sentient beings to get out of their suffering. We dedicate so that every being can be free from their suffering, their causes, the mental defilements, that can live and experience peace and joy, that everywhere that there are conflicts can become small and the small ones can disappear. Let's dedicate for the environment as well and to the relationship within the beings, within sentient beings, with the environment, and not just may the earth be pure, but may sentient beings relate to earth in a balanced and healthy way. Let's dedicate so that every master that is guiding us can have a long life, so that the teachings of Dharma can spread in all directions, helping all beings to eliminate and overcome their egoism and ignorance. Let's dedicate so that each and every one of us can be inseparable from the presence of the Guru, the Buddha, the Dharma and Sangha.
Lame kutse rapten chi namkara trinle chokchur gepadang losan tempe drunme sasum ki drowe munsela tatu ne gyur chi kewa kuntu yanda lama dang dralme cheki pela longche chi sadan lamge yente rapzo Dorje chang kopa nyur tobo sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shi ninsen takto delek pe koncho sumki chingi lobo koncho sumki ngodrubo tsol koncho sumki trashi shon. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. Ripetete dopo di me.
Repeat after me.
Chö lam tudro, lam la parche, mi shom. Possa la mente diventare
May the mind become the Dharma.
possa il Dharma
May the
diventare
Dharma
il
become the
sentiero,
path.
possa il
And may the
sentiero
path be
essere
free
libero da
from interferences.
Mi me zerwe tercen ceresi drime kempe wangpo jampe liang du pong ma lu jom tse sang we da kan chen kepe so gen zong ka pa lo san trak pe shabla sol wa de. Io ringrazio ognuno di
I
voi.
thank every one of you.
Solo ricordare
And I
che
just
la
remind
ragione
you that the main reason why I chose to share what we saw these days is because really I believe that every one of you is able to do it. So I invite all of you to have faith in yourself and put it into practice. Thank you. Who wants to come for a brief thank you? You can come and have a good lunch.